Okay, now we're going to take a look at Elizabeth and Myra's project, Public Issues, Evident and Ignored. Let's see what you've got going here. Okay, so you're kind of talking about public spaces that have basically been left to neglected to the point of, yeah, okay, abandoned public spots. Let's see what you got. Yeah, okay, interesting. Okay, okay. So damaged streets and abandoned buildings. Okay, good. Okay. Oh, there we go. It's an abandoned house, and it looks very abandoned. Um, yeah, this is interesting. I feel like maybe you're. I don't know if it's on a hill or it's feeling a little crooked to me. It's feeling like maybe it's tipping up a little bit, or maybe that's just the structure. Maybe the structure is kind of sagging on one side. I'm not sure. Um, I really like um, the organic debris that you've got in the foreground. I think having the dead um, plants there, just kind of reinforces the emptiness, or the essentially dead um, house as well. I think the sky is a little blown out. That's always kind of a challenge. Um, maybe doing some HDR or something um, to get that to work a little bit better. But other than that, I mean, the light is nice and even. Looks like you were out there on a cloudy day, so you are not dealing with a lot of unfortunate, highlights and shadows. Okay, yeah, this one is interesting too, and again, you've got something included in the foreground, which I really like. I don't see it would have been a problem to just go ahead and get all of that tire in there, um, and maybe even get at a slightly lower eye level just to kind of close up the space a little bit between the tires and the building. But yeah, there's a lot of kind of started and not finished structures like this, and yeah, they just become they're just like magnets for trash and all kinds of things. Okay, this one's nice. I like the inclusion of the graffiti on this one. Again, I feel like the sky is a little bit blown out, even though your exposure looks really, really good up here in the foreground. Another thing you can do if you don't want to do the HDR, you can take a couple of different photographs, underexpose one of them, just bracket so that basically you're getting this, several exposures of the same shot, and then just bring, using Photoshop, cut and paste, just bring the sky from the darker one and drop it in behind the foreground. I mean, ideally, you shouldn't have to do that, but if there's just no getting around it, and that and you can pull it off, which wouldn't really be very hard to do at all. That's just another little trick you could try. Okay. This is probably your most interesting one. First of all, you're much closer to the building. Um, and I think we've got a completely different feel when we're like right there. It's a good it's a good angle. You know, you've got your 2-point perspective going on. You've got this corner closest to you. We've got a lot of contrasting colors. You know, yellow is always a very bright kind of jump out at you color. And then of course the excessive graffiti on this makes it even that much more interesting. Let me just, I mean, I don't know how close, on these two for sure, I think that you really are going to get more where you were standing, because part of the, the structure itself isn't as interesting as its relationship to the ground that it's on. This one as well. This one, it'd be interesting to see what would happen if you got some closer shots. I don't know if it would be better or, as good as or better or whatever, but there's something just, putting us this close to the structure. It feels a little bit more ominous, a little bit more dangerous. You're kind of worried if you're going to step on a broken beer bottle or, a syringe or something, and it does kind of, I think, give us, there's something very dangerous looking about it. It just looks like you could step up on that porch and who knows if you would, cave in or what. And so, I think this one probably, it's a little bit more in your face. And I think it's a more effective photograph, and then the same thing I'll say about the sky here. Great exposure from here down. It would be nice if the sky was a little darker, or if you got so close to your subject that you didn't even have a sky. That's another thought. Sometimes the closer you get to something, the more interesting it is. But okay, so, ooh, very nice. This is, okay. That's really good. I mean, just having all those tires down there, um, that pretty much, that pretty much summarizes it right there. It's, yeah, just kind of very clearly, there's a lot of tires in there. It's very interesting that you're still seeing that you got these 4 up here in the foreground, and then they just keep going back and back and back, and there's more and more. So yeah, and then you've got, your bridge and, kind of a nice little community up here, and it's kind of sad, that this is what's in their backyard. Okay, so this is almost like a, on these you're kind of, you know, being very specific about, certain things that are or should be the government's responsibility, and they're not taking care of it. So it almost becomes kind of like a, what is the word I'm looking for? Like an expose, trying to expose the wrongs of the those who are in charge. Like, what are you doing if you're not taking care of this stuff and you don't care about our welfare? What's going on? It's not necessarily the most interesting composition. I think it's got potential. I think the interesting thing is the puddle, and the stuff in the background is less so, and certainly, like what's happening in here is not really all that interesting, whereas the puddle itself, there's interesting reflections on it. There's all these footprints around it. There's lots and lots of texture, and I think maybe I would have liked to see you get a little closer and also maybe tilt your camera down a little bit. It might be really interesting if you could just completely take this out of context. It's a photo essay, so since you're already providing us with text, we already know that this is Reynosa. You don't necessarily have to show us that in the picture. because text is accompanying the picture. So therefore, the the puddle just kind of as a composition in and of itself, I think could be pretty dramatic. This is just a little something to think about. Okay, very, very nice. This here is a bit of a distraction, and I think it would have been easy enough to either remove that with Photoshop or just position yourself. I really like these 3 piles of trash and this single tire in the foreground. This is another situation where I would say if you got down lower, which, you know, is probably kind of icky, it looks pretty muddy there, but I think it could have been a lot more dramatic if you got down lower. It would close up the gap between the tire and the 3 piles of rubbish over here. So there was not quite so much, you know, dead space between them. Also, it would have brought your rubbish piles up so that they were like cutting into the sky. You know, like right now, the tops of these are like just pretty much touching the horizon, which it's kind of making them disappear. You know, it's like it flattens it out a little bit. You know, it's like if you really want to exaggerate, this is in front, this is in back, this is close, this is far. You know, getting down lower so that you break that line. That's and then it makes them seem bigger too, because they'll be, you know, like, oh, they're so big, they're like going up into the sky or something. So you know, I think this one could be composed a little bit better. I think it's croppable too. I mean, I think that, you know, you'll have a completely different composition if you can kind of see where I'm drawing a box with my cursor right here. You know, I think that what's happening in here is a lot more interesting than what's happening on the perimeters, at least the top and the sides. And you know, perhaps just eliminating a little bit of that picture might help. I also think maybe your horizon's a little bit tilted. I don't know, maybe it's my glasses. It looks like all of the horizons are tilted a little bit. Maybe it's just me. But, you know, just keeping in mind that if you couldn't get your camera perfectly horizontal while you were shooting, it's super, super easy to, you know, correct that in your editing software. And, you know, you'll have to lose a little bit. You'll have to crop the edges a little bit, but not too bad. Okay. This one's very, very nice. I think this would be more effective if you had something right here. This is a really good, you know, street shot. No doubt about it. But you do have this kind of big, vast area here with not much going on, which is fine. It still kind of serves to lead us into the picture, and I'm not really sure that you'd want to do it any other way, but it just thinking in the context of, you know, you've got something in the foreground here, you've got this thing in the foreground here, you know, you've even got these tires in the foreground here. I think that feels like something's missing from this one almost. But you know, that said, I still think that it's a pretty successful image of a street, and I think that it's coming across, you know, that these potholes are there. So okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at your conclusions. And you guys did a nice job on this. I'm just going to flip back through them again quickly. You know, I think it's interesting that you know, I think one of these was on this side of the border, and I think it's interesting that you both kind of focused on a similar theme, but in different places, and yet there's really a strong similarity. I mean, the photos seem to you know, transition into each other quite nicely. You know, like this one is the last of Elizabeth's, and then okay, and then this one is the first one of Myra's. And I think that's a transition that makes sense. Clearly it's a changed subject, but the mood and the atmosphere and even the lighting. I don't know if you guys like shot in different places on the same day or something, but you have very similar lighting conditions, and that's helping us have some consistency in the colors. Which is good. So I think that these were very appropriate images to combine, and uh, I think all of them could use a little bit more, um, a little bit more excitement, a little bit more flair or something. But for the most part, I think it's successful. So let's go ahead and take a look at the conclusion. And tell you guys you did a very good job. Interesting. Yeah, so you've almost like got um, almost like a compare and contrast between Reynosa and McGowan. That's an interesting angle as well. That um, they both have a similar problem. It manifests itself in different ways.